If you read the title of this video, you're probably expecting it to be a hate-fueled rant against Mario and Luigi Brothership. But before you flood my comment section, let me start off by saying that while I was very disappointed in this game, this review will be in-depth and I'll still be focusing on the many positives to be found amongst the negatives. It's not all terrible, but it's just, not that great. So, where does the disappointment begin? Well, this is the third Mario RPG miracle releasing within a 12-month span. First was the brilliant Super Mario RPG remake, in which Nintendo managed to put licensing disputes over fan-favorite characters with Square Enix to bed, and produce a faithful yet modernized remake of a classic to both fan and critical acclaim. Miracle number 2 was the remake of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, which brought original characters and worlds back to the Paper Mario franchise after a nearly 2-decade absence, ending the streak of Paper Mario games that use only bland and sanitized environments and characters, restoring the Paper Mario name to greatness and pleasing fans and critics across the board. And finally, Mario and Luigi Brothership was poised to be miracle number 3, reviving the dormant Mario and Luigi series after a decade, seemingly raising it from the dead after the bankruptcy of its development studio Alpha Dream. Unfortunately, its new development studio Acquire, which still does contain former Alpha Dream employees, does not quite deliver a solid Mario and Luigi experience in Brothership, and it's a far cry from the heights of the Alpha Dream era. Good to see the series back, but it doesn't come close to the joy I experienced playing Super Mario RPG or Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. The Mario and Luigi series is quite special to me, as I've played every entry in it except Partners in Time, which I own but I still haven't started yet. Anyway, despite the change in developer, I was always going to show up for a new Mario and Luigi game day one. While Brothership is not as good as I had hoped, I still found plenty to enjoy, so this review will go in-depth into the story, gameplay, and performance, so by the end you'll know how it compares to previous entries, and whether you're a Mario and Luigi veteran or newcomer, if it's worth picking up for you. So with that well and truly out of the way, let's get stuck in. It's a normal day in the Mushroom Kingdom when suddenly a portal in the sky opens up and Mario, Luigi, Peach and Bowser are spirited away to the world of Concordia. Right out of the gate, I really dislike how the story begins. A portal that sucks characters into another world is so boring, so overdone at this point. It put me in a negative state of mind right from the beginning. Being the 6th installment in a long-running series known for its creativity and experimental storytelling, it's disappointing that it starts in the most generic way possible. Anyway, upon arriving in Concordia, the brothers are tasked by new companion Snoutlet into reconnecting the drifting islands of Concordia. Using their controllable home base, Shipshape Island, which is sadly never referred to as the Brothership, the duo must find each island's lighthouse to connect it to Shipshape Island, while holding off the forces of the evil Zocket and his Zoc troop, who want to keep Concordia separated. Despite that disappointing opening, that's a pretty solid premise for a Mario and Luigi game. Unfortunately, despite moments of brilliance here and there, the total narrative is not that great. I clocked Mario and Luigi Brothership at a whopping 49 hours, which is pretty long for a Mario and Luigi game, let alone a Mario game in general. Super Mario RPG was about 15 to 20 hours, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door came in at about 20 to 25 hours. Both of those hit the perfect sweet spot in terms of length, and while it's been a while since I've played any of the previous Mario and Luigi games, I certainly don't remember them being 50 hours long, and if they were, they didn't feel like it. I hate to say it, but the majority of those 50 hours, especially in the game's first half, feel like an absolute slog. Now, I don't have a problem with long RPGs at all. Just a few weeks ago, I sank 100 hours into the excellent Metaphor ReFantazio, and I consider it to be one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. But in Brothership, the problem lies first and foremost in its pacing. It takes a long time to ease you into the world, and when it finally does, the world itself is actually quite dull and repetitive. The first island was fun, meeting its cute little power socket-faced inhabitants, as well as seeing some brand new enemy types. Original characters are always a plus in Mario games. But then you get to the second island, and it's the same socket-faced inhabitants again. Then the third, the fourth, rinse and repeat. Each island, especially in the first half of the game, looks visually similar. They all have this bland, clean pastel aesthetic going on. And despite being a new world for Mario and Luigi to explore, the environments do play it very safe. People loved to give Paper Jam a hard time when it was released, saying it played it too safe with its generic environments. But Brothership does the same thing. It's like, here's your desert world, here's your forest world, here's your grass world, this is what you want, right? If you're going to make an island hopping game, why wouldn't you make each island feel unique? And give the game a real diversity of races and species, giving the player a sense of wonder as they explore the world. Coupled with a repetitive and bland story, the first half of this game is an absolute slog and will test the patience of even the biggest Mario fans. Thankfully, it does start picking up around halfway into the game, with a few more diverse environments appearing, and by about 3/4 into it, when a certain character finally shows up, it starts to get actually quite good. While the endgame sequence is also quite protracted, adding another 8 to 10 hours onto an already bloated experience, it has a hugely satisfying and creative final boss, which almost redeems a lot of the game's shortcomings. Without spoiling anything, the final boss is definitely worthy of being called a JRPG boss, and is unlike anything Mario and Luigi have ever faced before. And just one more complaint about the storytelling: the writing. The Mario and Luigi series has never been particularly deep or epic, but it is known for being quite funny. Games in this series are generally well written, usually hitting you with joke after joke. Unfortunately, Brothership comes nowhere close. While there are a few funny moments here and there that punctuate the tedium, as well as a few references to past games, generally the writing is dull and lifeless. Supporting characters in this game don't need to be deep or complex, but they should be charming at the very least. Sadly, the dialogue here is tedious to get through. It's almost like the writers know this and deliberately pack as much in to waste your time. There's a character called the Grampy Turnip that often shows up, and he has to be the worst character to debut in a game this year. He says nothing of importance, just makes lame jokes that I skip through. It's almost as though that they knew the script wasn't funny and doubled down on it, and that's the joke? Well, it's simply not funny, it wastes your time, and it's just dull. To conclude the story section, Brothership is sadly the lowest point in the entire Mario and Luigi series. Some fun moments here and there, especially when the game finally gets going 25 hours in, but the sludgy pace of the game makes it a chore to get through most of the time. It squanders an interesting premise, as well as the legacy of games that precedes it. While it does pay off somewhat at the end, the ending does not completely redeem the absolute slog it is to reach. So, do these pacing problems continue into the gameplay? I hate to say it, but yes they do. I'll start off with the positives. Exploring is fun, especially once you unlock the UFO move to cross gaps, and the ball move to speed around. It's a joy to navigate the world, but when it comes to battles, I'm a little mixed. Mario and Luigi battles are known for 3 types of moves: jump, hammer, and bros attack. Pressing A on impact for Mario or B on impact for Luigi adds extra power or defense, and this staple of the series has always been fun, trying to nail the timing each time. It separates it from other RPGs, and it's part of the charm of the Mario and Luigi series. While A for Mario and B for Luigi has always been the norm, Brothership makes an annoying change to the 20-year-old formula. In the past, Luigi used B to select commands, land attacks, and defend. But in Brothership, suddenly it's A to command select, and B for attacking and defense. While those having their first Mario and Luigi experience with Brothership might not pay any attention to this, as a returning veteran this is an insanely baffling decision, and I'm not the first person to complain about this. Nintendo man, what are you doing? You can't just try and undo 20 years of muscle memory like that. Because of this change, I constantly messed up the rhythm of Luigi's attacks. Even 40 plus hours into the game, I was still doing it. A really stupid decision if you ask me. Maybe it makes more sense with modern JRPG sensibilities, but it's going to annoy returnees and then confuse newcomers should they decide to revisit any of the older games on DS or 3DS. I know a lot of players aren't happy about this change, and I'm frankly shocked it made it in here. It should really be patched out in a future update, and I really hope Nintendo listens to feedback on this one. Furthermore, the way the battle system unfolds is also poorly paced. It takes a few hours of gameplay to even get the hammer, which should be available from the beginning, and at least 5 hours to get to Brothership's unique gameplay concept, the battle plugs. The battle plug system is actually a genius concept, and feels like it belongs in a more sophisticated JRPG. They function as cooldowns in battle. Equipping them can add effects to your moves like extra damage or an elemental property. Some of them buff you, some of them automatically heal you, and so on. Some of them used in tandem also create additional effects. In a sense, it lets you create your own moves, which is an awesome concept. And because they have cooldowns, after you use them for a certain number of turns, you have to swap them out. Thankfully, swapping battle plugs doesn't waste a turn, so it never feels troublesome. And because they are always cooling down and having to be swapped out, it keeps you coming up with and trying new builds. And it's kind of like a mini puzzle trying to figure out which plugs work well with others and what your best option is when your favorite plugs cool down. I loved everything about this. Hats off to you, Acquire. You added something new to Mario and Luigi that is awesome. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to get access to the battle plugs, and then you only get a few of them to choose from and only 2 slots to equip them in. As the game progresses, you'll get to 5 slots and an insane amount of them to choose from, but for the battle plug system to truly get cooking, it takes about 25 to 30 hours of gameplay to get to. In my opinion, the slow unraveling of the battle plug system was a mistake. This is the best part of Brothership's combat, and the developers should have put it front and center, making it fun right from the outset. I think a lot of players are going to be put off by the tedium and repetitiveness of Brothership's first half, and they might quit before the gameplay starts getting good. So the devs really done goofed a bit on this front. Next up is another returning staple, the Bros moves. These are powerful moves that require you to play a little timing-based minigame to unleash their full power. These are hit and miss. Some of these are incredibly fun and rewarding, shout out to Yoo-Hoo Cannon and Clock Out Blow, but some of them like Bomb Derby are just too easy to screw up and mostly got ignored by me. But like the battle plugs, they're introduced too damn slowly. There are only 10 of them in the game, and you won't get the 10th one until there's only a few hours of gameplay left. And once again, you only have a few, in this case only 4, to use in the game's sluggish first half. It's once again a shame that Bros moves unravel so slowly, especially as these are a Mario and Luigi staple. They should be there right at the beginning, drawing new players into the adventure and the unique charm of this series. But one thing I'd like to praise here is the boss battles. I love not only the visual design of the bosses themselves, but also the way they play. Each one has unique attributes, and they force you to figure out how to best use the battle plugs and Bros moves you have available. They also add a Luigi logic component in which Luigi gets to play a special minigame at certain points mid-battle. Nailing these minigames stuns them and lets you land a bunch of critical hits, so it's another unique concept of Brothership that works. The final boss in particular is a standout experience and one of the most fun boss battles I've had this year. To conclude the gameplay section, like the story, there's still a lot of fun to be had, but new gameplay gimmicks are withheld from you for long sections of the game, and it is once again a repetitive slog through the first half to get to the good stuff. And the slow and monotonous gameplay and story are compounded by one more unforgivable issue: the performance. I was in a state of utter shock at how badly this game runs on Switch. These visuals are simple, cartoony designs, graphically not as sophisticated as plenty of other Mario games on Switch, and yet it runs perhaps the worst of all of them. The frame rate struggles to keep up, and can't even reach 30 FPS half the time. As later game areas get more sophisticated, this game runs like molasses. I'm sure if I counted the frames, they'd be at like 15 to 20 per second. While the Switch is certainly not a powerhouse and frame rates don't need to be perfect, I haven't seen a frame rate this bad since maybe Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity or Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It's not only noticeable, but distracting. Making matters worse are the load times, which are insanely long. You're expected to do a lot of fast travel between islands, especially if you want to do all the side quests, and load times between islands are frustratingly long. They're enough to break your flow state and make you reach for your phone. If that weren't bad enough, there are load times in and out of battle. Transitioning from overworld to battle takes a good 5 seconds, and it's not even a dynamic transition screen, just a plain yellow screen that stutters thanks to the overall poor performance. Transitioning back to the overworld gives you a plain black screen with a gameplay tip, and these are a bit longer than the transition in. Mario and Luigi on DS and 3DS always felt snappy and responsive. You're in and out of battles in a flash, and nailing input timing feels responsive. Despite the series having moved to more modern hardware, Mario and Luigi is nowhere near as tight. Battle animations also feel more drawn out, and coupled with bad performance, it's harder to nail the timing. While we can put up with slow frame rates and long loading times, losing that snappy responsiveness means Brothership is a downgrade and worse than what came before. And speaking of what's worse than came before, let's talk about the visuals a little more. I like the way that Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, and the classic characters are animated. They look like classic Mario and Luigi box art brought to life, and I love that. I also came around to love a lot of the new enemy designs. While a lot of the Zoc Troop take on the appearance of plugs, I found that a bit uninspiring at first. It's like the developers just saw some headphone and HDMI cables lying around their desk and, pressed for time, based enemies on that. But basing enemies on office equipment is nothing new for Mario RPGs, as 2020's Paper Mario, the Origami King, literally just turned a stapler and sticky tape dispensers into bosses. So at least giving an HDMI plug a pair of eyes is a step up in creativity. While none of these new characters can compare to the classic Bowser's minion enemies, they give Brothership its unique visual identity. I already complained about the environments and NPCs, and yeah, what a shame. There's very little variation between the socket-faced people, so I would have liked to have seen more variety here. We're getting a bit off topic here, but isn't the theming of this game really weird? Having socket people as good guys and plug people as bad guys? It just strikes me as random, but I suppose it ties into the theme of connection that this game has, although somewhat clunkily. Fun fact, in Spanish, this game is called Connection Fraternal, which I guess you could translate as Brotherly Connection. It's a far better title than Brothership, the title they went with in both English and Japanese. Anyway, the visual motif of connection and connecting things is more memorable than Shipshape Island, which is never once called the Brothership, so yeah, a weird naming choice. And that interface too, eesh. Plain, too yellow, boring. Having access to HD architecture should mean the developer takes more risks in creativity, giving us something more interesting to look at. Having a handheld device level UI on the big screen is always going to look icky, and boy does it ever. Also, when revisiting islands, you get this huge mini-map in the upper left corner that shows you where Shipshape Island is on the world map, which is the most useless feature, and the hugeness of it actually gets in the way when you're trying to run around. A mini-map of the area you're running around in would have been much better, instead of having to constantly pause the game to bring up the full map to find your objective. And the full map is not great either, as it only shows one level at a time with no way to view other levels, so sometimes you just have to wander into doors until you stumble upon what you're looking for. Overall, the UI is dull and occasionally frustrating, but seeing as it's generally an easy game, not enough to ruin the experience. Finally, the music. Well, it's okay. Sorely missed his series composer Yoko Shimomura, having been replaced with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's main theme composer Hideki Sakamoto. His music is not bad, certainly very bright and energetic. A few pieces get grating, and I really wish there was more than one battle theme throughout. Something I liked about Paper Mario the Origami King is that all battle themes took on a regional variation depending on where you were in the story, but sadly that's not the case here. Yep, just one battle theme on a home console game in 2024. It's not a terrible theme, but you will get tired of it. Some of the overworld themes are quite nice, once again, especially in the second half. Overall, it's nice, but not amazing music. Conclusion time, baby. Let's wrap this up. It really breaks my heart to say that Mario and Luigi Brothership is a very disappointing game, with just a few flashes of brilliance here and there. The Mario and Luigi series has made a rough transition from handheld to home console, and an even rougher transition between developers. It's with a heavy heart that I deem it the worst installment in the entire Mario and Luigi series out of the 5 that I've played. The sluggish pace and bloated experience will test the patience of even the most devoted Mario and Luigi fans, and newcomers just wanting to play something new with Mario characters may find themselves bored and occasionally frustrated. While it gets much better in the second half of this 50-hour experience, gamers who can push past the monotonous storytelling and repetitive gameplay in the first half will be rewarded with some interesting story ideas, and excellent use of the exciting new battle plug system. But even players who can get that far will still be disappointed by the increasingly bad performance and frustrating UI, some of the worst seen on Switch so far. If Nintendo wants to entrust the Mario and Luigi series to Acquire going forward, then that studio really needs to take on board all of the criticism that Brothership has received. In addition to improving visuals, writing, and performance, they really need to work on the pacing. If Brothership had been fun and well-paced from the beginning, I'd perhaps be more forgiving towards it. But it was, and I stress this again, a poorly paced slog to get through. By fine-tuning the fun elements like unique battle mechanics, boss battles, and character animations, as well as improving upon the aforementioned issues, Mario and Luigi can be returned to greatness. But if the series continues like this, it will well and truly fall out of favor with fans, and irreparably damage the brand. So, if you're considering buying Mario and Luigi Brothership, be prepared to put up with a lot to get to the good stuff. I liked the good stuff on display here, and Acquire does show potential as custodians of the series, but Brothership starts their tenure off with a bumpy start. So, thanks for watching until the end. Was I too harsh? What are your thoughts on Mario and Luigi Brothership? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, I'll reply to you. I'd like to stress again, it gives me no joy to tear down a new installment in a series that I love. But that is me putting my biases aside to give you guys the best review that I can. So, if more unbiased game reviews is what you want to see, smash that subscribe button and hit the like button while you're down there. So, thanks for watching, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.